The gleaming, glass and steel edifice of Innovatech Solutions pierced the Seattle skyline, a beacon of modern enterprise in the bustling downtown core. Inside, the atmosphere was a carefully cultivated blend of competitive innovation and high-octane energy. Sleek design met cutting-edge technology, from the ergonomic workstations to the holographic projection screens in the conference rooms. Yet, beneath this polished surface, a subtle undercurrent of corporate politics and a relentless focus on speed over security often hummed, almost imperceptibly, like a latent virus. It was a crisp autumn day, the Pacific Northwest air sharp and invigorating, reflecting the keen, analytical mind of Sarah Chen. But it also carried the faint, impending chill of a hidden threat, one that only she, with her quiet diligence, seemed destined to uncover. Sarah Chen, a junior software engineer in her late 20s, was an anomaly in Innovatech's vibrant, often boisterous, open-plan offices. While her colleagues engaged in loud debates over design philosophies or animated discussions about the latest tech gadgets, Sarah was typically found immersed in her own world. Her dual monitors glowed with a cascade of complex code, lines upon lines of intricate logic that few others in her department could fully grasp. Her desk, unlike the scattered chaos of many of her peers, was meticulously organized, almost stark. A single, half-eaten granola bar lay forgotten beside her keyboard, a silent testament to her unwavering focus. She preferred the quiet hum of her computer to the chatter, the precise logic of programming to the messy ambiguities of human interaction. Most days, she ate lunch alone at her desk, often debugging a particularly tricky piece of code, while others headed to the bustling cafeteria or gathered in loud, collaborative huddles. She observed her team leader, Mark, a charismatic but often superficial senior engineer, holding court with his boisterous colleagues, their laughter echoing through the vast space. Sarah's solitude wasn't born of being disliked, but rather from her intense concentration and methodical nature, qualities that her more extroverted, deadline-driven peers often mistook for social awkwardness or a lack of team spirit. She wasn't shy. Not exactly. She was simply, profoundly, absorbed. Her world was one of elegant algorithms and robust systems, a world where precision reigned supreme. One evening, long after the last of her colleagues had streamed out of the office, eager for happy hour or dinner plans, Sarah remained. The vast office floor, usually a cacophony of keyboards and conversations, was now silent save for the soft hum of servers and the distant whoosh of the city outside. She was deeply engrossed in a particularly challenging legacy code integration for a new module of Nexus Prime, Innovatech's flagship financial data platform. It was tedious work, digging through years of hastily written, often uncommented code. But Sarah's methodical mind thrived on such challenges. She was tracing a convoluted data flow through a critical subsystem when she stumbled upon a small, seemingly innocuous block of code, buried deep within the core architecture of Nexus Prime. Her eyes, usually calm and steady, narrowed. It was an anomaly, not a bug, not a typical error. It was too clean, too elegantly written, too perfectly camouflaged. It bypassed standard authentication protocols, allowing a specific, unconventional entry point into the system. It wasn't an obvious flaw that would trigger immediate alarms. It was a masterfully concealed backdoor, a subtle vulnerability that spoke volumes of its creator's skill and, more disturbingly, their intimate knowledge of Innovatech's deepest secrets. A cold prickle of unease snaked up Sarah's spine. Her logical mind raced. Why was this here? Who put it here? And for what purpose she didn't understand its immediate function, but she recognized its immense potential for exploitation. It was a gaping hole in their supposedly ironclad security, a vulnerability that could be leveraged for massive data breaches, financial manipulation, or even complete system control by an external entity. A flicker of disquiet crossed her face, hinting at a larger, more sinister implication that stretched beyond a simple coding oversight. This discovery, seemingly small in the vast ocean of code, was a seed of profound curiosity and chilling foreshadowing, a silent alarm bell ringing in the quiet solitude of the empty office. Just as the disquiet settled over her, a faint clatter echoed from the far end of the floor. Sarah looked up, startled, then frowned. It was one of the automated floor-polishing robots, usually a sleek, efficient presence, now jammed against a potted palm, its brushes whirring uselessly. A frustrated groan emanating from the elderly cleaner, Mr. Henderson, who was trying to coax it back to life. He was a kind, stoic man, known for his quiet efficiency, but the robot clearly had him stumped. Its small screen flashed a cryptic error code that no one on the cleaning staff, or even most of the IT help desk, seemed to understand. Mr. Henderson muttered under his breath, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. Pesky thing. Always doing this at the worst time. Just want to go home. Despite it being well outside her job description and the late hour, a small, almost imperceptible instinct prompted Sarah to act. She saw the man's exhaustion, his quiet frustration. Without a moment's hesitation, she calmly approached the jammed robot. Mr. Henderson looked up, surprised, then shrugged. It's fine. Miss, I'll get it eventually. Sarah, however, simply knelt beside the robot, her green eyes scanning its small interface. Her fingers, accustomed to the lightning-fast movements of coding, moved with surprising dexterity over the robot's keypad. She quickly diagnosed the subtle software glitch, a complex interplay of the robot's navigation algorithm and a rogue firmware update that had caused a system overload. It wasn't an obvious issue. It required a deep understanding of interconnected systems. With a few precise commands, a calm sequence of resets and reinitializations that most would have fumbled, she got the robot running smoothly again, its brushes resuming their rhythmic whir, its sensors blinking contentedly. Mr. Henderson watched, his jaw slightly agape. Well, he mumbled, a relieved smile spreading across his face. Thank you, miss. You're a lifesaver. Now I can actually finish and get home. Sarah merely offered a quiet, polite nod. She didn't seek recognition, didn't wait for praise. Her only reward was the quiet satisfaction of having solved a complex problem, of having eased another person's burden. It demonstrated her innate problem-solving ability, her compassion, and her keen understanding of complex systems that extended far beyond her immediate professional tasks. It was a small, unseen act that spoke volumes about her character. The pervasive undercurrent of corporate politics intensified as the annual tech conference, Innovate Northwest, loomed closer. This was the industry's most prestigious event, a showcase for cutting-edge technology and a battlefield for corporate dominance. Innovatech was poised to unveil a significant, highly anticipated update to Nexus Prime, a release that promised to cement their position as market leaders. At the helm of Innovatech was Mr. Arthur Sterling, the CEO. Sterling was a figure of immense charisma, a titan of industry with a silver tongue and an almost hypnotic presence. He was a visionary in his own right, but notoriously arrogant, impatient, and utterly convinced of his own infallibility. He was pushing the development team relentlessly for speed, prioritizing the flashy presentation at the conference over thorough, meticulous security audits. Market share waits for no one, he would often thunder in meetings, his eyes gleaming with ambition. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Sarah felt a growing unease, an intuitive dread about the hurried launch of the Nexus Prime update and the hidden flaw she had uncovered. The elegant back door, now a nagging presence in her mind, seemed to hum with silent menace. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that the rush to market, coupled with Sterling's dismissive attitude towards caution, was a recipe for disaster. She sensed that this conference, designed to be a triumph for Innovatech, might instead unleash a profound crisis, not just for the company, but for her, personally. The quiet before the storm was almost deafening, a prelude to the chaos that loomed just beyond the horizon. The lines of code, like unseen threads, were drawing her deeper into a web of corporate ambition, hidden vulnerabilities, and a threat that was about to break the surface. The week of the Innovate Northwest Conference descended upon Seattle with the force of a pre-monsoon storm, whipping the city into a frenzy of anticipation. For Innovatech Solutions, it was more than just an event. It was a coronation, particularly with the highly anticipated update to Nexus Prime. The pressure inside the sleek glass tower mounted to an almost unbearable degree, a palpable hum of frantic energy and last-minute checks. Every department, from marketing to development, was working around the clock, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the adrenaline of an impending triumph. Sarah, however, felt a different kind of pressure. The elegant backdoor she'd stumbled upon in the Nexus Prime code had been a persistent, nagging presence in her mind, a discordant note in the otherwise perfect symphony of Innovatech's impending success. Driven by an uneasy premonition and her own meticulous nature, she embarked on a final, exhaustive code review of the critical subsystems that linked Nexus Prime to the broader financial networks. She worked late into the night, her mind a finely tuned instrument, sifting through lines of code that blurred into abstract patterns after hours of intense concentration. Then, just 2 days before the grand unveiling, she found it, irrefutable evidence. The backdoor was not merely a flaw, not a programming oversight, but a deliberately engineered vulnerability. It was a sophisticated bypass, designed with a chilling precision for external access, capable of allowing illicit entry without a trace. Its complexity, the masterful way it mimicked legitimate system behavior, pointed to someone with intimate, insider knowledge of Innovatech's core architecture, someone who understood the deepest, most secure layers of Nexus Prime. A cold dread coiled in Sarah's stomach as she conducted a series of simulated tests. The results were horrifying. The vulnerability allowed for massive data breaches, the siphoning of sensitive financial information, and sophisticated financial manipulation that could wreak havoc on client accounts. Millions, perhaps billions, of dollars were at risk. Innovatech's entire reputation, its very existence, could be shattered in an instant. The realization left her breathless, a profound sense of urgency washing over her. Knowing the immediate danger, Sarah acted. She couldn't go through official channels. The chain of command was too slow, too mired in bureaucracy, and Sterling's impatience would render any formal warning moot. More importantly, she feared reprisal. Junior engineers weren't supposed to find such fundamental flaws, especially not in a system championed by the CEO himself. She'd be dismissed as a doomsayer, a troublemaker, trying to undermine the grand launch. So, she opted for anonymity. She crafted a detailed, meticulously documented email, outlining the precise nature of the flaw, its potential impact, and even suggesting immediate mitigation strategies. The language was technical, precise, leaving no room for misinterpretation of the severity. She sent it to 2 key recipients, Mr. Arthur Sterling's executive assistant, a direct line to the CEO, and to a general company-wide security concerns mailbox, a theoretical safety net for such warnings. She hit send, a profound sense of foreboding settling over her. Meanwhile, in his opulent corner office, Mr. Arthur Sterling was in a state of high-octane exhilaration. The conference was almost upon them, and Nexus Prime was about to be unleashed. His desk was buried under a mountain of reports, marketing strategies, and VIP guest lists. His executive assistant, a perpetually stressed woman named Brenda, diligently filtered the deluge of incoming emails. Among the hundreds of messages, the anonymous email warning of a critical system flaw landed in Sterling's inbox. Brenda, noting the anonymous sender, flagged it as low priority, suspecting a disgruntled employee. Sterling, in a rare moment of checking his own inbox between calls, scrolled through the unread messages, his eyes, quick but superficial, skimmed past the subject line, "Urgent critical vulnerability in Nexus Prime core system." He saw anonymous and instantly dismissed it. A disgruntled employee, perhaps trying to create problems before the big launch, or a rival company trying to sow discord. His mind was already miles away, focused on the grandeur of his keynote speech. the dazzling presentation, blinded by his own arrogance, his unshakable belief in Innovatech's invincibility, and the overwhelming desire for a flawless launch. He clicked the delete button without a second thought. The warning, meticulous and vital, vanished into the digital ether, unheard, unheeded. He epitomized the misguided Type B antagonist, driven by unchecked hubris and a profound disdain for caution or anything that challenged his perfect narrative. Sarah, back at her desk, watched her sent items with a mixture of hope and dread. When no immediate response came, no urgent calls or frantic alerts, a wave of profound disappointment washed over her. The dismissal of her urgent warning was a bitter confirmation of her worst fears about Innovatech's corporate culture: speed over security, ego over caution, flashy presentation over fundamental integrity. Her ethical code, forged in years of solitary, meticulous work, screamed in protest. She grappled with the choice: let it go, protect her job, fall back into the quiet anonymity she usually preferred. The alternative was terrifying: push harder, risking her career, her reputation, perhaps even her safety. If this was indeed an insider job, the internal conflict was agonizing. But her deeply ingrained ethical code, her conviction that protecting users and the integrity of data was paramount, far outweighed any personal risk. She remembered the faces of the small businesses and individual investors who trusted Innovatech with their financial futures. She thought of the insidious nature of the flaw, how it could devastate lives, not just balance sheets. This personal stake elevated the conflict beyond a mere technical issue. It became a profound moral imperative. Fueled by this unwavering ethical conviction and a growing sense of dread, Sarah made her decision. She would not abandon her warning. Instead, she spent the remaining hours before the conference meticulously backing up her research. She gathered forensic logs of the vulnerability, time-stamped records of her discovery, and digital copies of her anonymous warning email. She encrypted them, saved them on a secure offline drive, and placed them in a personal locker, a digital insurance policy. Then, with quiet resolve, she began to monitor the Nexus Prime system more closely than ever before, specifically looking for any attempts, however subtle, to exploit the flaw. She set up custom alerts, deep-level probes that would detect even the faintest whisper of unauthorized activity. She did all of this in secret, knowing that discovery could lead to immediate dismissal, perhaps even accusations of corporate sabotage. This act of defiant, proactive vigilance marked her definitive point of no return. She could no longer go back to being merely a quiet, compliant junior engineer. Her conscience demanded more. Unbeknownst to Sarah, a complex web of motivations was at play. Mr. Greg Hansen, the senior project manager, was a man consumed by deadlines and corporate politics. He had seen the anonymous email in the security concerns mailbox, as it was automatically forwarded to all senior project managers. He, too, had quickly dismissed it, a reflex born of years in a company that valued production over paranoia. However, Greg was also a keen observer of talent. He had subtly noticed Sarah's meticulousness, her quiet, unusual insights, the way she seemed to grasp complex code with an almost intuitive understanding. He had mentally filed away her name as someone to watch, someone with potential. While he deleted the anonymous email without a second thought, a tiny seed of unease had been inadvertently planted by the sheer technical detail and specificity of the warning, a detail that resonated with his own, more experienced, understanding of system architecture. He couldn't shake a vague feeling that something was off, a subtle dissonance. He, though a Type B antagonist in his initial dismissiveness, unknowingly became a potential future ally, a helper who would later be swayed by Sarah's undeniable expertise. Simultaneously, a young, quiet intern named Kevin Miller, working in the same department, had been subtly taking note of Sarah. Kevin was new, wide-eyed, and acutely observant. He had witnessed Sarah's focused, almost obsessive work ethic, her frustration with the company's rushed processes, and her quiet dismay when her suggestions were overlooked in team meetings. He'd seen her staying late, poring over lines of code with an intensity that fascinated him. He noticed the flash of concern on her face when she discovered the flaw, and the grim determination in her eyes as she secretly backed up her work. He admired her quiet integrity, forming an unspoken bond of curiosity and nascent respect for the unheralded engineer. He was a silent witness, a potential unseen hand who, in the coming storm, might prove invaluable. The stage was set, the warning ignored, and the hidden flaw now a ticking time bomb at the heart of Innovatech. The Innovate Northwest Conference, held at the sprawling Seattle Convention Center, was a dazzling spectacle of lights, sound, and technological marvels. For Innovatech Solutions, it was designed to be their crowning moment. The air hummed with excitement as industry leaders, investors, and tech enthusiasts gathered to witness the unveiling of the Nexus Prime update. Booths gleamed with futuristic displays, and the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the metallic tang of new electronics. Sarah attended, a silent observer amidst the throngs, her anxiety a low, persistent hum beneath the surface of her calm demeanor. She watched the presentations with a detached precision, every fiber of her being attuned to any anomaly. The climax of the first day was the CEO's keynote address. Arthur Sterling strode onto the massive stage, a figure of commanding charisma, bathed in the glow of a colossal LED screen displaying the sleek Nexus Prime logo. He delivered a flawless speech, his voice resonant with confidence, speaking of groundbreaking security features, unparalleled speed, and the revolutionary impact Nexus Prime would have on global finance. As he spoke, the updated Nexus Prime system was being showcased live on the main projection screen, a real-time demonstration of its capabilities. Then, it happened. Subtle, almost imperceptible. A flicker, a brief, barely noticeable distortion on the main projection screen. It lasted only a fraction of a second, quickly dismissed by the stage crew as a minor technical hiccup, a momentary glitch in the vast network. The audience barely noticed, their attention firmly fixed on Sterling's powerful delivery. But Sarah saw it. Her heart lurched. She immediately recognized the unique signature, the precise digital footprint of the back door she had discovered. It was a pattern she had meticulously identified in her late-night research, an anomaly invisible to the untrained eye but glaringly obvious to her finely tuned perception. Her internal alarm bells, once a quiet hum, now blared. She discreetly pulled out her tablet, her fingers flying across the screen as she accessed a secure, private monitoring protocol she had installed. Her eyes, usually calm, darted across the real-time system logs. Her suspicions were confirmed: a flurry of unauthorized activity, a torrent of data siphoned off, client accounts subtly manipulated, all occurring with a precision that bespoke a master hand. This wasn't a glitch. It was a large-scale, precision attack, executed with surgical finesse. The identity of the perpetrator flashed through her mind, a cold certainty. The rival company, Apex Systems, led by its ruthless CEO, Victor Thorne. Thorne was a name whispered with a mixture of fear and grudging respect in the industry. He was a former Innovatech executive, a brilliant but deeply resentful programmer who had been publicly passed over for Sterling's position years ago, leaving with a hidden vendetta and a vast reservoir of insider knowledge. His actions now were driven by pure malice, professional envy, and a burning desire for revenge against Sterling and Innovatech. He was the quintessential antagonist type A, a puppet master pulling strings from the shadows, exploiting the very flaws Sarah had warned about. Backstage, a controlled panic erupted. Technicians, previously confident, now scrambled frantically, their faces paling as they realized the scale of the infiltration. Error messages flashed across their consoles, but the source remained elusive, masked by the sophisticated nature of the attack. Sterling, finishing his keynote to rapturous applause, was met by a sweating IT director who whispered the grim news. "Mr. Sterling, there's a major data bleed. We're being breached. We can't pinpoint the source." Sterling's face, usually composed, contorted with fury. What do you mean? You can't pinpoint it. Fix it. Now. He slammed his hand on a nearby table, demanding immediate answers, his carefully constructed illusion of invincibility crumbling. In this chaotic moment, as the company's reputation teetered on the brink, Sarah knew she had to act. It was the involuntary unveiling of her genius, a situation where she was compelled to reveal her hidden talent. She didn't boast, didn't accuse, didn't seek credit. She simply stepped forward, her voice cutting through the frenetic energy backstage with a startling calm. "It's a back door, sir," she stated, addressing Sterling directly, her eyes fixed on the flashing error messages on a technician's screen. Embedded deep in the Nexus Prime core, it's designed to bypass our primary authentication and encryption layers. I discovered it days ago and sent a warning. Her voice was steady, precise, devoid of accusation. The digital signature suggests a highly sophisticated, targeted infiltration. It's Victor Thorne, Apex Systems. A hush fell over the frantic technicians. Sterling spun around, his eyes widening in disbelief. A backdoor warning. What are you talking about, Junior? His initial reaction was scorn, then bewilderment. Without waiting for a response, Sarah moved to a portable console, her fingers flying across the keyboard with a blur of motion. Lines of complex code, a rapid-fire sequence of commands, scrolled across the screen. She was not only diagnosing, she was actively mitigating. "I'm crafting a temporary patch," she explained, her gaze never leaving the screen. "It won't stop the attack entirely, but it will slow the data siphon, buy us critical time to identify and close the main breach." Within seconds, she had written out a few lines of code, a sophisticated, elegant solution that bypassed the current security layers and began to disrupt the flow of outgoing data. The technicians watched in stunned silence as the frantic red alerts on their screens began to slowly flicker, then turn amber. The data bleed, though not entirely stopped, had significantly slowed. Sterling, though outwardly still furious, was forced to grudgingly acknowledge her undeniable technical insight as she stabilized the immediate crisis. His face, a moment ago contorted in impotent rage, now held a grudging respect, mixed with a deeper, more unsettling realization of the potential disaster she had just averted. However, Sterling's arrogance quickly reasserted itself. He couldn't publicly admit to such a colossal oversight, let alone to having dismissed a junior engineer's warning. He clapped Sarah on the shoulder, a forced, patronizing smile on his face. "Excellent work. Chen. Quick thinking. Just a minor stress test. Folks, our systems are robust, but a little unexpected pressure from a rival keeps us sharp." Eh? He publicly downplayed the incident as a minor stress test, a mere bump in the road. Privately, he pulled aside his IT director, his voice low and stern. "Handle this quietly. No leaks. And make sure this Chen, whatever her name is, doesn't talk to anyone. I don't want any more warnings from her." He viewed Sarah as a useful, if overly zealous, tool, still fundamentally misunderstanding the profound severity of the threat and the true depth of her talent. His ego remained paramount, overriding any genuine concern for systemic vulnerability. Greg Hansen, the senior project manager, had been right there, witnessing the entire chaotic scene. He saw Sarah's calm, almost preternatural ability to diagnose and mitigate the complex attack under pressure. He watched her fingers dance across the keyboard, executing commands that even his experienced eyes couldn't fully follow. A profound sense of awe mixed with a growing confusion settled over him. He recalled the anonymous email he had cursorily dismissed, the one with the precise technical details. The pieces began to click into place. His initial dismissiveness transformed into a dawning realization of Sarah's extraordinary talent, making him a potential helper, an ally whose pragmatic nature would eventually lead him to support her. He began to suspect a deeper, more sinister game was afoot. perhaps an inside job that went beyond mere corporate rivalry. He couldn't shake the feeling that Sterling was missing something crucial. Whispers spread like wildfire among other Innovatech employees and conference attendees. Some, especially the younger, more tech-savvy ones who had seen snippets of Sarah's rapid-fire coding, were impressed by her quick thinking, her quiet heroism. "Did you see that junior engineer? She just shut down the leak," others muttered. But many, particularly Sterling's sycophants and those who clung to the official narrative, remained skeptical, echoing Sterling's downplaying of the incident. "Just a small hiccup," they repeated. "Nothing to worry about." However, despite Sterling's attempts at damage control, news of the glitch began to leak. Tech blogs buzzed with rumors, and financial news outlets started running speculative pieces, raising uncomfortable questions about Innovatech's security protocols and, by extension, its stability. The stock, though not yet plummeting, showed a distinct wobble. This created external doubt about the company's stability, a slow burn of suspicion that would only intensify. The stage was now set for intensified scrutiny, greater dramatic irony, and a much larger crisis, one that would force Innovatech to finally confront the true cost of hubris and neglect. The insidious attack had begun, and Sarah, the unsung hero, found herself at the very epicenter of the escalating storm. The minor stress test that Arthur Sterling had so flippantly dismissed quickly spiraled into a full-blown corporate nightmare. Within hours of the initial breach at Innovate Northwest, Apex Systems, under the cunning direction of Victor Thorne, launched a sustained, multi-pronged cyber attack. The elegant backdoor Sarah had warned about became a gaping maw, swallowing Innovatech's core. Nexus Prime, once the company's pride, buckled under the relentless assault. Widespread system outages crippled operations. Critical financial data was corrupted, and client accounts showed massive, inexplicable losses. The digital infrastructure of Innovatech, designed for speed, proved shockingly vulnerable when faced with a truly malicious internal threat. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Innovatech's stock, a symbol of its once unshakable market dominance, plummeted faster than a stone in a well, wiping out millions in shareholder value. Major clients, from multinational banks to private investment firms, began to defect en masse, their trust shattered. News channels, once buzzing with praise for Innovatech, now broadcast dire reports of the unfolding crisis, their headlines screaming about security breaches and corporate incompetence. Lawsuits mounted, threatening to drown the company in legal fees and reputational damage. Whispers of a potential federal investigation into data security failures added another layer of existential dread. Innovatech was facing not just a crisis, but a complete collapse. In the eye of this hurricane, Arthur Sterling was a man teetering on the brink. His charisma, usually his greatest weapon, was useless against the cold, hard numbers flashing red on his executive dashboard. In a desperate attempt to deflect blame from his own negligence and reassert some semblance of control, he ordered an immediate, comprehensive internal investigation. However, his directives were subtly manipulated. He instructed his head of security, David Miller, a man who had risen through the ranks based on fierce loyalty and a ruthless efficiency that bordered on paranoia, to find the source and make sure it's external. Sterling wanted a scapegoat, and he wanted it fast. What Sterling didn't know, and what Sarah was tragically about to discover, was the profound, personal betrayal at the heart of this disaster. David Miller, driven by a deep-seated professional jealousy of Sterling's rapid rise and a simmering resentment over perceived past slights, had been secretly collaborating with Victor Thorne. Thorne, ever the opportunist, had promised Miller a vast fortune and a senior position at Apex Systems once Innovatech was crippled. It was Miller who, years ago, had subtly engineered and installed the backdoor in Nexus Prime, cleverly disguising it as a complex diagnostic tool, an undetectable worm waiting for Thorne's signal. Now, fueled by ambition and malice, Miller used his access and Sterling's directive to systematically frame Sarah. He planted false digital trails, manipulated log files, and selectively revealed fabricated evidence, painting her as the saboteur, a disgruntled junior employee trying to undermine Sterling and the company. Sarah, who had been tirelessly working to patch the breaches and analyze the attack patterns, suddenly found herself targeted. Her system access was inexplicably revoked. Colleagues who had been impressed by her quick thinking now avoided her gaze, their expressions shifting from admiration to suspicion. Whispers turned to accusations. She was isolated, cut off, her very integrity questioned. Even Greg Hansen, her senior project manager, though he now recognized her exceptional talent and felt a gnawing doubt about the official narrative, felt immense pressure from Sterling's inner circle to distance himself from her. Sarah was utterly alone, facing not only the relentless external cyber assault from Apex Systems, but also a profound, insidious internal betrayal from someone she considered family. David Miller was her cousin, a fact unknown to most at Innovatech, and a painful twist of the knife in her heart. The setting for the escalating crisis became Innovatech's highly secure but now thoroughly compromised server farm. This sprawling, climate-controlled vault of blinking lights and humming machines was the very heart of the Nexus Prime system, the beating pulse of Innovatech's technological prowess. It was a place she once revered, a sanctuary of pure logic and immense power, now transformed into a symbolic arena of her professional crucifixion. Her access was limited, but she knew its every corner, its every hidden pathway, its every vulnerability. This location underscored her deep, personal connection to the technology she was now accused of betraying, making the fight for its integrity inextricably linked to the fight for her own name. Sterling, facing an enraged board of directors demanding immediate answers and swift action, issued an ultimatum: the Nexus Prime system must be fully secured, and the root cause of the breaches definitively identified within 48 hours, or the company would face complete, irreversible collapse. He declared this impossible task to his stunned senior executives, privately, and in a moment of desperate pragmatism, Greg Hansen, remembering Sarah's anonymous warning and her uncanny ability to mitigate the initial breach, quietly defied Sterling's directives. He knew, with a certainty that transcended corporate politics, that Sarah was the only one capable of solving this. Under the cloak of night, Hansen secretly re-enabled Sarah's most basic access, granting her a bare-bones digital key to the server farm. He met her in a dimly lit, forgotten corner of the campus, his face grim. "They're blaming you, Sarah," he said, his voice low and urgent. "Miller's feeding them lies. But I know it's not you. I also know that if this system isn't fixed within 2 days, there won't be an Innovatech left. And you're the only one who can do it. Can you?" Sarah looked at him, her eyes tired but resolute. Despite the unjust accusations, despite the crushing weight of betrayal, her ethical code and her deep-seated loyalty to the system itself, to the integrity of the technology she loved, compelled her. "I can," she replied simply, "but I'll need to work in secret, and I'll need an extra set of eyes, someone completely discreet." This was her ultimate test. She had to work in absolute secrecy, under immense pressure, with severely limited access, and with the constant threat of discovery and complete ruin hanging over her. The countdown had begun. In her desperate fight for time and access, Sarah turned to the only person she truly trusted within the company's lower ranks: Kevin Miller, the observant intern. Kevin, though quiet, was brilliant and fiercely loyal to Sarah. He had seen her frustration, her quiet defiance, and had continued to observe her, a silent shadow in the bustling office. He knew something was deeply wrong. With Kevin's quiet, almost invisible help, Sarah managed to intercept a cryptic, heavily encrypted communication. It was a series of rapid-fire, coded messages exchanged between David Miller's secure company account and an unknown external party. The messages were fragmented, but terrifyingly clear discussions of payment schedules, references to Phase 2, and chilling mentions of a clean sweep and erasing the trail. The details were still veiled, but the implication was undeniable: a deeper complicity, a meticulously planned sabotage. This intercepted communication added another chilling layer to the mystery, revealing the profound internal betrayal at its core and underscoring the formidable power of the forces arrayed against her. The server farm, once a beacon of technological prowess, was now a treacherous labyrinth, and Sarah, isolated and accused, was forced to navigate it alone, driven only by her genius and an unshakable sense of justice. The digital battlefield was set, and the clock was ticking. The ninth hour for Innovatech Solutions arrived shrouded in the grim certainty of collapse. The company, once a titan of innovation, was now a sinking ship. Its stock, once a symbol of Silicon Valley ambition, had plummeted to catastrophic lows, its value eroding with every passing minute. Key clients, their trust irrevocably shattered, were pulling out in droves, their once lucrative contracts dissolving into bitter legal battles. News outlets, sensing blood in the water, broadcast dire reports from morning till night, their headlines screaming about security failures, corporate malfeasance, and the impending demise of a tech giant. The final board meeting was underway, a somber, high-stakes affair, poised to vote on a disastrous dissolution plan that would dismantle Innovatech piece by painful piece. Arthur Sterling, the once unflappable CEO, was cornered, his usual charisma replaced by a visible desperation, his empire crumbling around him. Deep within the heart of the crisis, in the highly secure but now compromised server farm, Sarah Chen worked. The room hummed with the soft thrum of machines, a stark counterpoint to the frantic chaos engulfing the company. Her access, though still limited, was enough. Fueled by a potent cocktail of caffeine, adrenaline, and an unshakable ethical imperative, she raced against the clock. Her fingers, a blur of motion across the keyboard, danced over complex algorithms and lines of code, her green eyes scanning multiple monitors, searching, analyzing, deciphering. Beads of sweat dotted her brow, a testament to the intense mental and physical strain. She had spent the last 48 hours in this digital battlefield, meticulously tracing the intricate pathways of the attack. Now, with the board meeting underway, she finally deciphered the full, horrifying extent of the sabotage. It wasn't just the backdoor she had discovered. It was a hidden, sophisticated piece of malware, designed with a chilling brilliance. This malware wasn't just siphoning data, it was programmed to self-destruct after a specific time. A digital ghost set to vanish, erasing all traces of the true perpetrators and leaving Sarah, the accused, holding the bag. The cold precision of the attack, its meticulous cover-up, confirmed her deepest, most painful suspicion. The bitter truth solidified in her mind the profound familial betrayal. Her cousin, David Miller, Innovatech's head of security, was the architect of this insidious plot. He was the one who, years ago, had subtly installed the back door, cloaking it in layers of legitimate code. He was the one who had activated it, collaborating with Victor Thorne, driven by a deep, festering resentment for Sterling's past slights and a promise of vast wealth from Thorne. The knowledge was a knife twisting in her gut, a betrayal more devastating than any corporate loss. The narrative slowed down, meticulously detailing Sarah's desperate act. Her hands, calloused not from manual labor, but from countless hours on a keyboard, flew across the illuminated keys. Each command was precise, deliberate. She diagnosed the malware, dissecting its malicious code like a surgeon. She crafted a complex counter-exploit, a digital shield designed to block the self-destruction sequence and expose the hidden trails. The screen glowed with lines of her own code, elegant and potent, battling against the insidious logic of Miller's malware. The clock on her monitor, synchronized with the company's internal servers, ticked down relentlessly, each second a precious commodity. She raced against the self-destruct timer, a digital countdown to Innovatech's obliteration and her own ruin. This was the breath-holding moment. Just as she was about to deploy the counter-exploit, the heavy steel door of the server farm burst open. David Miller stood there, his face contorted in a mask of desperate fury and chilling recognition. He knew. He had been monitoring her access, watching her close in. He knew he had been exposed. "No," Miller roared, his voice raw with panic. He lunged forward, a desperate, wild look in his eyes, clutching a pair of heavy-duty wire cutters. His intention was clear: to physically sever the network cables, to shut down the servers, to delete any final evidence before Sarah could release it, leaving her framed and Innovatech destroyed. He was willing to sacrifice everything, including his cousin, to save himself. A tense physical struggle ensued. Sarah, usually so composed, reacted with a primal urgency. She dodged his initial lunge, swiveling her chair, pushing herself away from the console. Miller, larger and stronger, stumbled forward, roaring in frustration. He grabbed a keyboard, throwing it at her, trying to incapacitate her. But Sarah, fueled by sheer adrenaline and a fierce determination, moved with surprising agility. She grabbed a server rack, using it as a shield, then kicked out, catching Miller in the shin. He roared again, momentarily off balance. That brief distraction was all she needed. Her eyes darted back to the glowing monitor, the timer flashing dangerously low. Every second was agony. It seemed all was lost, as Miller recovered and lunged again. Closer this time, his hands reaching for the network cables. At that precise moment, in the hushed, tense boardroom, Greg Hansen, unable to shake his growing suspicions about Miller and remembering Sarah's anonymous email and her uncanny ability, finally confronted Sterling. "Sir," he whispered, leaning in, "I have reason to believe the sabotage is internal, and it points to David Miller." He presented the fragmented communications Sarah had intercepted. Sterling, still in denial, was about to dismiss him again. Just as the board prepared to cast their final, company-dissolving vote, a blinding flash of light erupted on the main screen in the boardroom. Sarah, having fended off Miller's desperate assault with a burst of sheer willpower, had deployed her counter-exploit. Remotely, across the digital chasm, incontrovertible evidence of Miller's sabotage and Victor Thorne's involvement exploded directly onto the board meeting's main screen, projected for all to see. Lines of code scrolled rapidly, interspersed with damning evidence, forensic logs detailing Miller's original backdoor installation, time-stamped records of his malicious activity during the attack, the complete, previously encrypted communications between Miller and Thorne, revealing their meticulous planning and financial arrangements, and the chilling details of the self-destructing malware Miller had planted to cover their tracks. It was all there, undeniable, revealed in real time for the world to see. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts of outrage, and a furious clamor filled the air. Sterling, his face pale and contorted, watched the evidence unfold, his initial denial crumbling under the weight of the undeniable truth. He saw his cousin's name, his own family's betrayal, splashed across the screen, confirming the depths of his own hubris and misjudgment. Miller, his desperate struggle in the server farm now useless, was apprehended on the spot by security personnel who had been alerted by Greg Hansen's earlier desperate call. News outlets, monitoring the unfolding crisis with hawk-like precision, picked up the live feed of the evidence. Headlines instantly changed, from reports of Innovatech's demise to breaking news of corporate espionage and an internal betrayal of staggering proportions. Sarah, the silent, dismissed engineer, was publicly vindicated. Her genius undeniable. Her integrity proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. The woman who had been ignored, scorned, and accused had not only saved the system, but had exposed the very rot at the heart of her company. Her victory was complete, a powerful catharsis for all who witnessed it. In the tumultuous aftermath of the Innovate Northwest scandal, Innovatech Solutions, though wounded, began its long, arduous road to recovery. The immediate crisis had been averted, the digital bleeding staunched, but the damage was profound. Trust, once freely given by clients and shareholders, had been brutally shattered. The company's stock, though no longer in freefall, faced a steep climb back to its former heights. Yet, with the system flaw comprehensively patched and the true culprits exposed, a fragile confidence slowly began to return. The focus of the company shifted dramatically, away from Arthur Sterling's relentless pursuit of speed and flashy presentations, towards a new, unwavering commitment to robust security, ethical innovation, and, most importantly, transparency. The consequences for the antagonists were swift and absolute, their downfalls mirroring the severity of their betrayals. David Miller, the architect of the internal sabotage and Sarah's own cousin, faced the full brunt of the law. The incontrovertible evidence Sarah had broadcast to the world, coupled with his desperate attempt to destroy the server farm, led to his immediate arrest. He was charged with multiple counts of corporate espionage, high-stakes sabotage, and attempted fraud. His familial connection to Arthur Sterling, far from offering him protection, magnified the breach of trust in the eyes of the public and the legal system. He faced a swift trial, and the verdict was merciless. He received a severe prison sentence, his once promising career and reputation utterly ruined. The intricate web of his deceit, born of resentment and greed, had ultimately ensnared him completely. Victor Thorne, the ruthless CEO of Apex Systems, and the mastermind behind the external attack, watched his empire crumble. Innovatech and its affected clients wasted no time. They launched a devastating class-action lawsuit against Apex Systems, accusing them of corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, and deliberate economic sabotage. The legal battles crippled Apex. Thorne's company was subjected to crippling fines, their assets seized, and their once-feared reputation turned to ash. Victor Thorne himself faced criminal charges for corporate espionage and conspiracy, his ambition leading not to conquest, but to profound professional and personal ruin. The irony was bitter. He had sought to destroy Innovatech, only to obliterate his own company in the process. Arthur Sterling, the once unflappable CEO, found himself in a crucible of his own making. Though he was not prosecuted for the cyber attack, his negligence, while catastrophic, was not criminal. He faced immense pressure from Innovatech's enraged board and disillusioned shareholders. The fact that he had ignored Sarah's anonymous warning, that his hubris had allowed such a devastating breach to occur, became public knowledge. He was forced to confront his own profound arrogance and the systemic negligence that had permeated Innovatech under his leadership. In a highly publicized press conference, his face pale but his voice firm with a newfound humility, Sterling publicly apologized to Sarah, to the company, and to the affected clients. He acknowledged his critical errors in judgment, his failure to heed warnings, and his misplacement of trust. Days later, he announced his resignation as CEO, effective immediately. He did not leave Innovatech entirely, but transitioned into a less prominent advisory role on the board, a fitting consequence for his arrogance and dismissal of vital warnings. He had learned a brutal, expensive lesson in humility. This experience marked the beginning of a profound journey of self-reflection for him, forcing him to understand the true cost of unchecked ambition and the fundamental importance of listening to dissenting voices. He slowly began to genuinely reform, becoming a quiet but earnest proponent of corporate ethics and a champion for cultivating a culture of caution and integrity. For Sarah, the external turmoil subsided, leaving behind a profound sense of purpose. Her unwavering dedication and unparalleled skill had not only saved Innovatech from utter ruin, but had also fundamentally reshaped its future. Her efforts were met with overwhelming gratitude from the remaining board members and loyal employees. In a quiet meeting, the newly appointed interim CEO, a no-nonsense technologist brought in to stabilize the company, presented Sarah with a transformative opportunity. She was offered a newly created, highly prestigious position, Chief Cybersecurity Architect of Innovatech. This role was not merely a promotion, it was a profound validation of her skills, her meticulous nature, and her unshakable ethical code. The role granted her full autonomy over all aspects of Innovatech's system security, from software development to network infrastructure. She received a substantial salary, a reflection of her newfound value, and the resources to build a world-class cybersecurity division from the ground up, recruiting the brightest minds and implementing the most robust protocols. She was now at the forefront, shaping Innovatech's future, ensuring that such a disaster could never befall them again. It was a dream come true for the quiet engineer, a chance to build and protect on a scale she had only ever imagined. Weeks turned into months, and as Innovatech slowly clawed its way back, Sarah and Greg Hansen, her former senior project manager, now a steadfast ally, shared a quiet conversation in the now secure, humming server farm. The lights blinked green, a soothing contrast to the frantic red alarms of before. "It's almost like a different company, isn't it?" Sarah Gregg mused, leaning against a server rack, a rare smile on his face. "The air is lighter, more honest." Sarah nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. The crisis stripped away the pretense. "Greg, it forced us to look at our flaws, not just our strengths." Greg sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I still can't believe I dismissed your email. The anonymous one. It was so detailed, so clear. My God, if I had just listened." His voice was filled with profound respect and a genuine regret for his initial dismissiveness. "You're a genius, Sarah. And more than that, you have a kind of integrity I rarely see in this industry. I'm truly sorry." Sarah looked at him, her eyes soft. "You did listen, Greg. When it mattered most. You gave me the chance to fix it. You believed in me when no one else would." She acknowledged his crucial support during that critical, terrifying moment, cementing their professional and personal bond. Their conversation was a quiet testament to shared trauma and hard-won wisdom. They spoke of the lessons learned, the paramount importance of listening to every voice, no matter how junior or unconventional, of valuing caution and thoroughness over reckless speed, and of the profound difference integrity makes, not just in code, but in corporate culture. The server farm, once a symbol of disaster and betrayal, had become a quiet sanctuary, a place where the foundations of a stronger, more ethical Innovatech were being laid, brick by digital brick, secured by Sarah's unwavering vigilance. The new calm had settled, a hard-won peace that promised a brighter, more secure future for the company she had saved. 3 years later, the once-battered Innovatech solution stood reborn, a shining testament to resilience, integrity, and the transformative power of a single, unwavering vision. What had been a precarious journey back from the brink of collapse had culminated in an industry leader, not just in innovation, but in ethical practices and cybersecurity. The memory of the breach, once a dark stain, now served as a powerful lesson, a reminder of the fragility of success built on hubris. At the forefront of this remarkable turnaround was Sarah Chen, now a recognized industry luminary. As Innovatech's chief cybersecurity architect, her face graced the covers of prominent tech magazines, often accompanied by headlines celebrating her revolutionary approach to digital defense. She led a thriving, diverse team of the brightest cybersecurity minds, championing robust security from the ground up, integrating ethical design into every line of code. Her division, once an afterthought, was now central to Innovatech's identity, a fortress of digital integrity. Her personal life, once marked by a quiet solitude, was now enriched by genuine friendships forged in the crucible of crisis and a profound sense of purpose. She was still meticulous, still preferring quiet concentration, but now her methodical nature was seen not as a quirk, but as a formidable strength, a hallmark of her genius. Her vision, however, stretched far beyond the confines of Innovatech. Driven by her own experience of being dismissed and nearly ruined by corporate hubris, Sarah established the Guardian Initiative, a non-profit program that quickly gained national recognition. The initiative was dedicated to funding and mentoring aspiring cybersecurity professionals from underrepresented backgrounds, particularly young women and minorities, who often face systemic barriers to entry in the tech world. She championed the principles of ethical hacking and responsible disclosure, creating a safe space for white-hat hackers to report vulnerabilities to companies without fear of reprisal, fostering a culture of collaboration over confrontation. She frequently gave lectures at universities across the country, advocating for a culture of humility and open communication in tech, emphasizing the critical importance of listening to every voice, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. For true security lay not just in code, but in collective vigilance and mutual respect. Greg Hansen, now a trusted senior vice president at Innovatech, worked closely with Sarah, ensuring her cybersecurity division had all the support and resources it needed. He had truly learned his lesson from the crisis, becoming an internal champion for ethical development and a mentor to junior staff within his own department. He often shared his own story of dismissing Sarah's initial warning, using it as a poignant cautionary tale, always reminding his team to listen to the quiet ones, for they often see what the loudest voices miss. He became a living embodiment of redemption, his actions speaking louder than any apology. Even Arthur Sterling, from his new advisory role on the board, quietly championed Sarah's initiatives. He often provided strategic advice and leveraged his extensive network to secure resources and partnerships for the Guardian initiative. This was his quiet act of atonement, a subtle but consistent effort to make amends for his past errors. He had genuinely reformed, his focus shifting from personal glory to the broader ethical responsibility of the tech industry. He became a proponent of corporate ethics, his powerful voice now used to advocate for the very principles he had once ignored. The story culminates on a crisp, clear autumn evening. Sarah stood on the rooftop garden of Innovatech's headquarters, a new addition she had personally spearheaded, designed to emphasize holistic well-being and natural light. Below her, the vibrant city of Seattle twinkled with countless lights, stretching towards the distant, dark expanse of Puget Sound. The sleek Nexus Prime logo, once synonymous with crisis and controversy, now gleamed confidently from a nearby building, a symbol of Innovatech's successful resurgence and its newfound commitment to impregnable security. In her hand, she held a small, secure tablet, its screen displaying a perfectly clean, unbreachable system architecture, lines of code that represented not just digital security, but the triumph of integrity over arrogance. A gentle breeze ruffled her hair, carrying the faint scent of the rooftop garden's herbs and the distant hum of the city, a symphony of progress and peace. She was no longer just a brilliant engineer who had patched a critical flaw. She was a guardian, a visionary who had rebuilt not just a system, but an entire corporate culture, proving conclusively that diligence, humility, and unwavering ethical courage were, truly, the ultimate strengths in the complex, ever-evolving digital age. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming stories.